Welcome back to Mind Your Head. Now, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. The bad news is this is the final episode of Season 1. And since this is the season finale, I've decided to do something special. This will be a reunion episode. I've got Sophie, Chris, Brock, Leffers, my dad, all returning. The good news is that we'll be back for Season 2 with some incredible guests. I do want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for showing all their support, tuning in to all the episodes over this first season. It's been truly overwhelming and it's been honestly one of the best experiences of my life. I can't thank you all enough. This is Mind Your Head, Roundtable Edition. Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Your Head.
Hello, Elliot.
No one wants to talk first.
Thanks for the invitation.
I thought you were talking to the listeners.
When I normally ask that question, they say, "Oh, yeah, good to be here."
Could be that.
We're just trying to be polite and not talk over you, Elliot. You know?
You can talk, though. I love it. Chris is like, "Don't talk over everyone." Everyone's like, "Who goes first?" Because I don't want to speak over Tom anyway. Dad was like, "Brock, answer."
Yeah.
Hey, what
Over to you, Brock.
You fucking idiots. But welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks, Al.
What's it like being back in the studio? Does it bring up any past emotions or feelings? I know the last time you were in the studio, it was a pretty vulnerable and emotional chat that we had. Has it brought up any past feelings or emotions?
It's all positive for me. That was one of the most positive conversations I think I've had, and overdue. So for me, coming back here is great.
Yeah, I'm probably the same as Brent, actually. Dug into a lot of feelings and emotions I haven't done before, and when I left, I was pretty emotionally drained, but I think moving on from that, it's definitely been a positive reflection.
Awesome. Any feedback from your episodes? I know someone sent you a nice message.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, that was a pretty nice message. I won't name her, but someone messaged me I knew from school and just said these really nice things about me as a person at school, and then how her chats motivated her to go speak to someone about her losing a loved one and whatnot, which was really nice to hear. I think I actually got a bit teary when I read it.
Did you?
Yeah, it was pretty nice.
Yeah,
it was good. It made me feel good because I was real nervous doing the podcast, and then I was like waiting, seeing what people will think or whatever, and then I think she sent that a day or two after, and it was really nice to see it had an effect on someone.
Well, I remember we had a chat, and I remember you said to me, "Why would anyone want to listen to my story?" And you didn't think that anyone could resonate with it or anything like that. Yeah. And now that sort of proves the point that you've helped someone.
Yeah, good.
Same with me. I mean, people who contacted me, especially family. I mean, I thought I was the only one in my family with those thoughts. Everyone had the same thoughts. And even friends have contacted me and said, "You're not going to believe how many other people of my age are going through the same thing and have been through the same thing." So I guess it's just helped them be aware that we all aren't alone.
Yeah.
And it just means, if it means we have to tap someone and have a chat, then so be it.
I had cousins I didn't know I had.
I know.
Messaging me. Did Mum tell you that?
I saw it. Yeah.
It says, "Hey, Elliot Cuzzy," and I was like, "Cuzzy?
Yeah.
Who are you?"
and that was good. She does a similar.
Did you know who that is?
Yeah. Of course I
cool.
do.
All right. Yeah.
And she does a similar thing with mentoring people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And something you mentioned to me regarding Leffers' episode, the first thing you said to me was, "I just want to go and give Leffers a big hug."
Yeah.
What was it that he mentioned that? Was it the dad thing?
I think so. I think it was a combination of not having a dad there to give a cuddle, and I think you had stayed at our place that often and that many times, and we'd had that many beers together that I thought I could step up. Yeah. And I wasn't here.
Yeah.
So I missed that opportunity.
He did message me as well, wanting the hug. So.
Yeah, so it was a good feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was an opportunity to get.
Well, you've always been not to be cringy, but you have been like a male figure in my life, and the same with your dad, Brock. So it's good. I'll give you a hug afterwards.
So, Chris, in our episode, you mentioned that sort of after your breakup, down in Goldie, you pretty much got a whole new friends group. And I recognize you as someone that can make friends so easily. Deep down, does that come naturally for you, or did you struggle making new friends? And how different is it making friends when you're a kid versus being an adult?
Yeah, I think when I was a kid, it was a lot easier. I was just kind of like always like the party boy guy, you know. Like I'd always have like really big parties for all my birthdays and have everyone around for that. So it was just like easy for me to make mates. I was kind of like, it was hard when I was younger because I was sort of, you know, still learning English and figuring all that stuff out. But sort of when I found my feet kind of, you know, when I was around 15, 16, I think it was a lot easier for me to start making friends. And yeah, just through all the parties and stuff, I think that's kind of how I picked it up, and through playing rugby and doing that sort of stuff. I think now it's probably a little bit different for me. Like I'm probably a little bit more reserved, like in my older age, I think. A little bit more nervous, a little bit more like anxious, I think, as well. You know, when you're a kid, you're kind of fearless and you're just out there like just doing your thing. But I think now it's more sort of protecting myself and looking after myself. So, yeah, so I find it a little bit harder to make friends, but still, like, yeah, still.
Because I remember you said to
still
me,
get along with everyone. So,
yeah, I remember you saying to me that you have trouble making friends as an adult.
Yeah, I think we overthink. As adults, we overthink friendships. As kids, we have no inhibitions. You kick a footy, you're a mate.
Exactly.
But as adults, we overthink it, and we probably we're hard on ourselves, and we're not quite sure why are we becoming friends, and that's been my issue. I probably don't have much of a problem striking up a conversation and having a sort of a shallow surface friendship, but much deeper than that, I have my doubts, and I'm never too sure why we should become friends.
Yeah. I think when you get older too, your relationships are like, your circle's a lot smaller. So you just feel like, look, whoever gets in here has to, you know, sort of match your energy or provide something of value to your life, I guess, in a way, not in like a
Materialistic way, but
not in like
your
materialistic way.
You prioritize your values more, and
yeah, exactly. So it's more just about aligning with people who are sort of like-minded and are going to push you in the right direction. I think that's
you
kind
probably
of
just get a bit more selective when you get older, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's where I'm heading. I'm sort of heading towards that retirement, and I've now got to think about who I want in my life with regards to giving value. Who's going to enrich? What circles am I going to move in? So, yeah, that's a big challenge I've got coming up for the next 25 years.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing that you mentioned, like, who do you give your energy to? Yeah. That's the other thing, because as you get older, you stop giving a shit about everyone, because you're like,
true that.
I only have a certain amount of energy to share. Like, who I'm going to share it with, they've got to be kind of worth it in a way, you know? So it's like
very selective.
Yeah, you got to protect your own energy as well. So that's kind of like where I'm at now in my life as well. Because I actually get comments from people saying like I'm standoffish.
Do you?
Yeah, and they think I'm like a bit rude and arrogant. And I'm like, really? Like, you don't even know me. Like, and then I'll sit down and have a conversation with them for like half an hour, and they're like, you're a legend. Let's be friends forever, you know?
All right,
so,
sell down.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them still are. So, because like, it's like a challenge. I'm like, man, this guy doesn't like me. I'm going to convince him. We're going to be friends by the end of the night. Yeah.
What do you, Sophie, what do you look for in a friend?
I'm pretty cutthroat.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty cutthroat. I feel like I have the thing with friendships with me, it's the same level of, I guess, standard that I'd hold for a partner. Not the same as in I expect the same, but like the same level of like, you know, criticism, I guess. And yeah, so what I look for in a friend is like supporting, holding space, I think, like for big ambitions and not being competitive and all of those things. But I think mostly the like emotional intelligence being a key value of mine. That's crucial in a friendship. And yeah, I would say that is like the main thing. And then it's like just like-minded things. Like I don't entertain surface level conversations ever. even in surface level relationships. I'd probably ask what you've been through in life. Like, so yeah, that's just like having depth is really important to me. So that's what I prioritize in friendships. But I also really value someone. I think emotional intelligence is key because you have the depth, but you don't need to prove it, you know? So like some people who just discover who they are, they're like, we need to like unpack, you know, it's very serious, particularly in female friends. It's like, you know, you need to like talk about everything. So I really value the people who have like been through something, kind of discovered themselves, and then you don't have to like unpack everything. It's like we can also go let our hair down. So it's like that really, that duality of a relationship is really important to me.
What about you, Lef? I know that in our chat you said your passion is friends.
Yeah. No, I like trying to get along with everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like.
Is there something in our friends group that you really love in our friends?
I like that I'm proud of this. I'm proud that we've all gone our separate ways in our like professional lives and like relationships, romantic relationships and whatnot. But we all put in the effort to come back together. And then even though we might have all different finances, it's still the same. There's no arrogance, there's no chips on the shoulder, there's no looking down on anyone, there's no one sucking up. I don't know how to do that. But yeah, there's none of that going on. It's just sort of like if it's like if it's your round of beers, your round of beers. It doesn't matter what you're on. And I think we've just maintained that through our 20s and now into our 30s of that sort of standard. And I think that's what makes us all such good friends. And like it's just fun to be around.
Yeah, I've been listening to a podcast with Brené Brown. I don't know the author that. Are you guys familiar with her? She wrote a book on like vulnerability, and there's like a perception that you have to be like the funniest or the smartest, or you got to be clever to be likable and to build like a strong friendship group. And I listened to her TED talk, and it was about, she studies this, and it's nothing to do with how funny you are or how smart you are or how rich you are. It's about how you make people feel that determines a friendship. And what goes along with that is being vulnerable is the best way to go about it. And it made so much sense because in the episodes I have with you guys, that as soon as it's over and sort of the dust settled a little bit that night and we've had time to process it, I've felt closer together with you guys because we've experienced and we've shared and been vulnerable with each other. Like the relationship I have with you is totally different to before we walked in for our episode.
Yep. I think you've probably nailed it in the conversations or the friend groups that I've ever been involved with. You're right. It's pretty shallow. It's a few beers and you go home. You really don't get to know anyone. And it's only when I've had that conversation with you that I've started to talk to people and we get a bit deeper and your relationships improve. And that's a good point.
Yeah. Even like with Soph, like and Kristen, like they've seen like firsthand, and I didn't know you guys, 10 months ago.
I know.
And now it seems like
besties.
Like I see you guys pretty much every time I'm back away from work. And it's just like that power of being vulnerable with each other just builds that strong connection instantly.
Yeah, because you have the perception that you're going to be closest with the people you've been friends with longest, but it's actually, how long have we known each other? Probably, I don't know. How long have you been doing this podcast?
I think I met you last Christmas or something.
Yeah. So close now. Vulnerability.
Yeah, it's me thinking for the last 50 years you had to be strong and show no emotion, and that was apparently my background to failure. When I thought it was success, I thought that's what I had to prove and show.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of older males think the same thing.
Exactly, yeah.
And females,
Robbie
really.
put on a brave front when really...
Yeah, exactly.
He was probably struggling.
And going back on, I think when we're adults and we're going back on making friends, I think when we're adults, I think we're more in tune to when people are being genuine and not fake. And that's like a core value that we don't, like what Sophie said, we don't want any of the small talk. We don't want any of the fakeness. And just being authentic and genuine is something that I think we all prioritize now as we're sort of getting older. And the people sitting here today, do you think this is the most authentic versions of yourselves?
I think for me it certainly is.
Hard question.
Yeah, no, I think for me it is, and you've nailed it. I mean, and you said it before, Lookie, how much energy do you want to put into a relationship now? And so you are selective, and you do now want to know more about someone than what, and we don't have as many common things back in the day. Certainly for me, it was sport. If someone wanted to talk rugby, then I was happy with it. We didn't know anything more about them, probably didn't even meet their family for the first 2 years. And now, as I'm entering the age I'm entering, we want to know a bit more, and we want to have genuine relationships and find out about someone, what ticks. And so for me, and obviously I'm a little bit different age to you guys, so for me it means more.
Do you... go Brocco.
I was just going to say, probably.
I get this. We both paused. Yeah. I was like, I'll go.
Yeah.
Brock was like, I'll go.
I was just going to say, I think it's just shifted a lot over the years. Like when we were in our 20s, when we were hanging out, like we obviously didn't have any tough conversations really. We kind of just hung out, kicked the footy around, went out, partied, did all that. But now, like shifting as we're getting older, we're obviously not partying as much anymore. We're all a bit more serious with life, and I think that's when that authenticity comes out. You get to know everyone a bit more of a deeper level, and then really just reassures you that they're in their you're my life for a reason anyway.
And I think it just shows that we're all going through something.
Yeah,
I think when I was a little bit younger, maybe in my teens and stuff, I thought I was the only one going through things, and the first time you open up, it's not like someone's judging you or, calling you a strange kid or whatever. It's like, I went through that as well. Well, I'm going through that as well. You're like, oh.
Yeah. I think by the time you hit 30, you realise that everyone's gone through something.
Yeah.
It'd be impossible to get to 30 without going through something.
Yeah. And that's a question I've always wanted to ask you is, if I didn't ask you to come on the podcast and talk about the things that happened in your childhood, and would you have made the effort? Because I know I wouldn't have made the effort to talk about some of the things that I wanted to talk to you about.
I think I've been trying to make the effort for about 40 years, and there's never been a sit-down situation that we could have said, okay, this is the conversation we need to have. I know with Sammy, I've done it probably over 10 years.
Gradually?
Yeah.
Drip-fed him?
Yeah, I've drip-fed Sammy probably for the last 10 years. So it was pretty much nothing that came out of my podcast they didn't have a fair idea about. But you were playing footy and travelling, and your headspace wasn't in the best place. So, question: maybe if you hadn't have gone through what you've just gone through either, that situation wouldn't have come up. But if you were in the space you're currently in, I would like to have thought we could have had that conversation. I've been meaning to.
Yeah.
But it was just a case of time and place.
Yeah. What about you, Lef? Would you have ever sat me down and or felt the need to?
Well, I'd spoken to you a little bit about it.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'd spoken to close people, but there was still things in there and like the whole stringing the whole story together. And I had close mates who'd messaged me and didn't know half the shit. So
like army mates or
no,
I think I messaged you.
Did you say something like that, bro? Yeah. I think I had a few others say that as well. So
yeah.
Yours was a good story. I loved it. I couldn't
was,
believe what you put together, and you remembered virtually step by step, and that must have just
I was pretty nervous beforehand. I was pretty rattled for a few days, but it's all right. Yeah. It was emotional hangover.
Because I remember you were meant to go to work. Did you even go back to work?
No, I don't.
You didn't. Called a sickie in.
No. Yeah. But I don't know. I was going to say before when Brent was talking, I think it's good that you've jumped on the podcast and opened up, because you can see the effect it's had on both of you.
Yeah.
And then a lot of our age group still look up to our parents who are your age.
Yep.
And they might not have broken down those walls yet, and this might encourage them to do
spark
so.
That conversation.
Yeah.
So
and then
many
that'll
people.
help our generation then be vulnerable and pass it on. So,
because that's a lot of responses I had. It is like people saying, I would never have a conversation like that with my parent. And I was like, well, it's something that I think needed to happen.
I'll go back and I say it again. It's so hard for parents to get their kids in the right situation, right time, right place, and then be in the right place to sit down and go, okay, I need to have a conversation. That was always what was stopping me from doing. That was the barrier. When do I find the right time? to have this conversation.
Well, something that I've learnt doing this, it might seem funny, but I think everyone should have a sit down with either mum or dad, brother or sister, someone close to them, and set it up like a podcast. Have questions, have topics. Obviously, you don't have to film it, but to sit down and just say, all right, these are the things I want to know. These are the answers. These are the questions. And sit down. I think everyone should just sit down with your mum or your dad and just go through things. Because normally you just sort of...
And you did right. Maybe it needs to be structured.
Yeah.
4 o'clock.
Yeah, 4 o'clock.
Have your questions. Yeah.
What about Chris? Did your dad watch the episode or listen?
Oh, did Dad watch your guys' episode?
No, yours.
Yeah, he did, I think. I think he sort of watched half of it.
Oh,
yeah.
right.
I don't know if he watched the whole thing, but...
Did he not like it?
Yeah, no, he did. Mum said he liked it, yeah. He said it was, like, kind of brave of me to, like, go out and do that because he would never do that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was really cool to watch your guys' one as well and how it broke you guys down a little bit so you could build yourself back up. And I think...
That's what it was, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's me and my dad have done that as well because like I had heaps of issues with my old man. So we've done it a few times. Like normally we're having a beer.
That's good to
or
hear.
a few beers. Yeah. And then, like I just give it to him how it is and I just say, look, this is what happened and this is how it made me feel and you didn't even realise it and all this stuff. So Dad sort of blames himself for everything that has happened to me over the years, I guess. But yeah, he's sort of at a point now where he's kind of forgiving himself too. Because I'm like, Dad, all the stuff that happened to me when I was a kid and between us has made me like who I am now. Yeah. So it's like, if you didn't do that stuff, I wouldn't be who I am now. So technically I have you to thank for who I am now as well. Yeah. So I'm like, you did everything right technically because otherwise I wouldn't be like
it's not all bad.
Yeah. And he's like, I love you. You're great. And I'm like, yeah, you did that. Like you were part of that. So
it's a great way to look at it, yeah.
Yeah, I sort of had to go through those things to become who I am. So if you think of it in that respect, then all this sort of like pain and trauma kind of goes away a little bit. And then you guys can like let your walls down and like forgive each other. Yeah. And like you love each other at the end of the day. So you don't have to have a wall up. Like life's too short. Like start enjoying each other. And I think it's taken me and Dad so long to do that. And now we're at a point where we can actually sit down and like be mates, which is
awesome.
Well, I feel like that's what we are now. Awesome. I feel like we can actually. Yeah. I feel there was a bit of a blockage there. We were just sort of butting heads a lot, and now I can have open. Even our dialogue that we have, our conversations are on a much deeper level emotionally.
Yeah, I think ours was a little bit different in as much as you spent a lot of time away playing footy, and then I packed up and left for 10 years. So I guess those opportunities weren't there.
We had a social media relationship.
Yeah, we did have a social media relationship. But since the podcast, that's all changed. But it is interesting when you say that you're the person you are because of what you've been through.
Yeah.
I often think of that for me as well. I mean, I had an reasonably unpleasant childhood, and I am who I am because of that.
Mate. I heard.
But I'd
listen
love
to
to
the
go back
podcast
and just tweak a couple of things.
Yeah.
I like the fact, I'm strong and I'm focused, and but I'd like to go back and tweak it. I'd be too arrogant to say I've got nothing to change because there's a bit there I'd like to.
Yeah. I think that's everyone though. Like everyone probably will always say that. Yeah. No one's perfect, right? But like the way that you grew up is what made you who you are now, and the people who are in your life and love you because you're how you are now.
Yeah.
So like we wouldn't all be sitting here talking to each other if all the things in our lives didn't happen the way they did, because that's what makes us all talk to each other.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's why we love each other at the end of the day, because it's what we see in each other, the strength of character that we see in each other that makes us like closer, So I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
If you look at it sort of full circle as you get older, you're like, oh, I get why like that had to happen to me,
Yeah.
As opposed to like
blaming
like a victim's mentality where it's like, oh, this happened to me. I'm so sad for myself.
I love reflecting back on the struggles to see who it makes you now. And I think you mentioned that in your podcast, didn't you, Sophie? It's sometimes I look at it and it's nearly like I've skewed my vision of it. Well, I like see it as a positive or I'm like, hold up, that's the reason I am like this or whatever. And you're like, I don't know, maybe as the years go by, you just start to fish out the positives for it and you see how it shapes you as a person as well. So,
Yeah. I asked that question about the most authentic versions of ourselves because I feel right now at this moment I'm the most authentic version that I've ever been. I used to try to be a different person to different people in different situations because I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be liked, and I think that caused a lot of anger in me. And I don't think I was properly able to regulate my emotions or have an outlet or identify an outlet that I could release some energy. I realise now that exercising is like a big thing for me. I need to be doing some sort of exercise. Physically, emotional outlet has been the podcast. I think that I never looked at it like maybe I need different things for different outlets. So like emotional one is like doing this podcast and having chats and connecting with people and being vulnerable. Another outlet that I've just realised that I have is cooking.
Wow.
Yeah, so I love finding a recipe and cooking because there's like being creative is something I think I spoke about with you. Is I never thought I was creative, and I thought then I had like a thought, why did I like playing footy? It's problem solving. It's nothing to do about getting I hate getting tackled. But it was like problem solving. Like you've got to manipulate the defense. Like you've got to solve problems. You've got to be creative how you do it. And like cooking's the same. Like I follow a recipe, but then sometimes you're like, oh, I might throw this in there. Well, I wonder what that's going to do. And then by the end of it, you've got a meal and you eat it. Like I love doing that. My question is, what's everyone's, Sophie? What's your outlet? Or I guess you're like your meditation type therapeutic ritual that it could just be meditation. It could just be.
It's hard. It's a hard question for me to answer because I feel like my outlet is very closely linked to my work. But I don't really want that to be true.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, it's really. Well,
yeah, I was going to ask you, is it work? But then I was like, I wonder if she's going to take that the wrong way.
It's like I'm very passionate about what I do, so there's a close links there. But I think like most recently in my life, it's been about okay, like your identity can't be what you do, even though you've kind of you've curated it to be like about you, or at least the outlet is that. But I'm a massive fan of like just nature in general. So hiking is big for me, which I find really grounding. And then Pilates, working out, all of those things would be more like rituals that I love. But I think my outlet, honestly, most recently has been like writing and poetry.
Really? And
the reason I use that is because it's something like being kind of a personal brand or like really like have a podcast. I'm very active online. That's something I haven't leveraged. So it's something sacred, and I think like it's just for me, which means it's probably the closest thing to like the outlet that I have, yeah.
But your outlet is your craft, like you love.
What I wouldn't be able to like go say, I've just been in Europe for 4 weeks living my best life on paper and actually genuinely, but also like to come back is like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, nice.
So I don't know.
What's yours, Lev? Has it changed now that you're a father?
Yeah, well, you got lack of time, but like you've got your traditionals. But I tell you what, on Father's Day, I went for a surf for the first time in 2 years.
I've seen a photo of that.
I was like, shit, that's good for the soul.
Was it?
Yeah, it was nice.
Was it Kelly Slater or
Leffers
as well, baby? Or was it Mitchell Leffers?
I caught 5 waves and didn't fall off, so I was happy. But yeah, you got them, but I can't do that as often as I used to be able to do. But at the moment, I'm doing a new job where I'm not building something. I've always sort of used my hands quite a bit, and I've been enjoying building stuff around home. So like I built some porch thing to put some pots on for a front area the other day, and I love doing it. And I was like, I actually really enjoy it. And like throughout the day, I'm like pondering of like new things I could build or something. Like Bob the Builder over here. So, no, but like because I'm not doing it for a job, I guess now it's like I look forward to actually putting something together as a hobby or whatnot. And
you got to be careful because Dad wants renovations, so
do
not say Bob the Builder.
I was hoping he's.
I know where you live.
I know
where you live.
What about you, Brocco?
Well, mine's pretty obvious. Physical activity. That's probably my major outlet. Especially from a young age, I was always physically active, always going to the gym. But I didn't really connect the dots with the mental health till later in life. But yeah, probably the last few years, it's probably more running. We do a fair bit of running. I don't know. I just find if I'm having a tough day or I'm not thinking clearly, I just put it on the runners, go for a run, sweat it out for an hour, come back, and I'm like a completely new guy, just ready to take on the world.
Nice.
And probably the same as you, actually. I love cooking. I'm using the kitchen.
Yeah, you do, don't you?
Yeah. Making protein balls, doing heaps of
It's
stuff.
pretty good being Brock's roommate, to be honest.
Yeah, lucky Chris.
Yeah, I've lucked
I've been
out
wondering
hard.
that.
Ask Chris about the
Is
cooking.
he just living it up over here?
I'm just the dish
I'm
bitch.
the housewife.
He's got the apron
I
on
like
with
to
nothing
call it
underneath.
underwater dish technician, though. Yeah,
Yeah.
underwater
We-
dish technician. Look over here.
I like that.
Yeah.
We all talked over each other then.
Yeah, we did.
Fears and insecurities. I mentioned in the podcast with Soph that one of my insecurities or things I used to beat myself up about was being a quitter. When things would get too challenging or too hard, I would just fucking find the easiest way out. And I'm going through something now at work where I've been given another bit of machinery to operate. And I've been on one bit of machinery for almost 3 years, and they've promoted me to another bit, and I was fucking shit, like really bad. And I was like, everyone's like getting into me, like soft bullying, and I was like, oh, I'm so bad at this, and it just brought me back to like just being so green and starting fresh, and just being used to just being shit at something and going, if I just knuckle down, I would just go through it, eventually I will get good at this. And I remember like for my first week on it, I was like, I'm going to have to tell him, like, I'm going to have to tell him I can't do it. Like, I'm happy being in a truck. Like, I was already processing like a quitting plan in my head. And I was like, you know what? Like, I made a promise. I'm not going to do this anymore. To see it through, like, just see it fucking through. Like, it'll be fine. And then, like, three swings later, it's boring now. And I look back at that, Elliot, and I'm like, fuck, I don't know. I'm so happy that I can recognize that and just go, you know what? I'm not going to quit. I'll go through it. Eventually, I'll get good at it. Yeah. And now I'm fine with it. Now, when they put me on it, I'm like, oh, this is going to be fucking boring. Before, I used to, like, stress about it. Are you guys going through anything like that, or have you gone through anything like that you just felt like quitting, but you didn't?
Oh, for me, probably having worked for 50 years, absolutely. But I've never had it. I guess I've never had that barrier, being a quitting attitude. I've always looked at everything as being a challenge and a goal to reach. So, and I'm still going through that. So retirement's coming up. Best 25 years are ahead of me.
You keep saying that word.
I know, I do.
What's going on?
I didn't want to do it. So what I'm doing now is another challenge I'm about to hit. So my creative side of me, I've now worked 50 years, having to earn dollars to reach a goal, to pay things. That's all done. Don't need dollars now. So my creative side is coming out. So I've decided to learn to play the guitar.
Nice.
So I've got calluses on the end of my fingers.
Or Slim Dusty.
Yeah, good.
Looking for sympathy.
Mate, I know half the playlist of the Eagles. So that's a goal. And I've got this list of things, challenges that I want
They're a bucket
to do.
list.
Massive bucket list, 50. So whether it's playing the guitar, it seems to be creative stuff, magic, juggling.
Start a
guitar.
podcast.
Sorry?
Start a podcast.
Yeah, that's right. So it is. And I like those. I couldn't get through the next 25 without doing something every morning and having a goal to wake up to. So I embrace a new job or a new challenge, and I like getting to the end. So that's what I've got to look forward to. I love it.
Yeah, I'm probably the same as Brent, I think. I enjoy the challenge. Starting something new, and obviously you're a bit green and it's really uncomfortable, but you give it a few weeks and you start getting a little bit better and better, and it's just that little reward at the end of the tunnel, I think, once you master something.
Yeah.
The fact you haven't got a steering wheel makes it a bit even harder, doesn't it?
Well, when joystick does that, and then that one does that, I'm using two sides of my brain.
When you only thought you had one.
Something that I really wanted to ask Soph and Chris was the stress and pressure of running your own business. How do you cope with that? Is that something you guys thrive in? Do you try to limit the stress and pressure? Are you type of people that thrive in it? How do you guys manage that?
Do you want to go first, sir?
Okay, so I would say there's a part of me that thrives in stressful situations, but to be honest, to even go back to the question beforehand of like something you felt like quitting, I had a very, very real, for the first time in my life, moment of I'm going to leave On Track. Like, I'm done. It's too hard. Like, and I never thought I would have that moment. And I think you get very much attached to your business. It's like kind of like having a child. Like, you do create it and there's so much attachment to it. It becomes a part of your identity. People ask about On Track before they ask about me. Like, and I love that. But there is a point where that usually I thrive under stress. I've since realized that I don't want to just be, in a stressful situation and just coping. I want to be thriving, like, generally. So I've kind of made a conscious decision to, I guess, pull back, even though it's more comfortable. For me, it's more comfortable to go hard. So it's kind of like, for some people, it's the opposite and whatever. Slowing down is now becoming more of a priority for me, so I don't get to a point where I want to actually throw everything away. Because it's kind of like, for me, it's just like all of a sudden I'm drowning. But up until that point, I'm like, woo, let's go, like, and everything. So, yeah, I very recently almost threw in the towel. But then I think I actually...
When was this?
Didn't tell you.
How recent?
Was it after our episode? Fuck this.
I just hate my clients, eh? But no,
He asked the stupidest questions.
Yeah, I think, no, in a real, like, to be vulnerable, I think allowing myself to actually consider a world where On Track isn't in it, it was like initially it was like going through a breakup, and I was like, kind of crying at the thought of like failure, all the things were coming up for me. Then after that emotional wave passed, I was like, I looked at my scenario and I'm like, do I actually want to leave it all behind? The answer is no right now. Lucky for you. But the answer is no. But now I'm coming back to everything I'm still doing in the same way, from a place of choice as opposed to a place of program conditioning. This is just what I do. And it's actually given me a really refreshing view on everything.
Yeah.
So to answer the second question, I would say, yeah, I thrive in stress, but I also feel like I'm drowning a lot, and it is a lot. And it's kind of like my challenge is trying to prevent that drowning from happening.
Does that drowning bring out your best work? Because I felt that when I had my business, I felt I was at my best when I was drowning.
Yeah, and this is a huge conversation. I would say, I think from childhood we learn, like, our body actually goes into like patterning from when we were young. So if I was in a stressful situation when I was young, I learned I had to be everyone's favorite person in the room. So yeah, when things are stressful, everyone seems to love me in the room, which serves me. So like, we learn these behaviors and they continue to serve you. But what you don't realize as an adult, that you can actually become conscious of that behavior, like clean slate it, and then choose what you want to be and still, serve yourself in a more conscious way. So yeah, some of my best work is done through stress, I would say, and certainly historically, but I'd like to think I haven't even touched what I can achieve if I'm coming from a more grounded place, because yeah, it would be a whole different, I wonder what I could achieve if I felt supported, because I don't know if you guys listened to my episode. I don't even know if I talked about it, but my history and my journey, the whole time I've been an adult and even younger, I haven't ever felt financial support or really like genuine support from someone who I could turn to in terms of like, I'm struggling. So imagine what would happen if I did feel that support.
Yeah, you mentioned it at the end of your episode.
Yeah.
About, I can't quite remember what you said. It was something about it's okay to, it might look like I'm succeeding, something along those lines, but it's okay to still support me.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I know I'm doing fine. Like I actually have built the resilience and self-belief that I will succeed or achieve what I set out to do. Like, that's my history, and I know that will happen, but it doesn't mean I want that. Like, I'm like, I'd rather have support because it'd be more fun with people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Over to you, Chris.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I think with me,
Move on.
I felt you and I was like, do not.
Did you see
Just
me a
because I
minute ago?
took up space.
some really good points there, Soph.
I concur.
For me, I think that I sort of look at the question a little bit differently, I guess. I think life's just a struggle in general, and work's part of that. You're not going to enjoy all parts of your work all the time, obviously. So for me, it's more about how do you deal with it. So that's why I've had to develop this lifestyle, and Brocco's actually helped me heaps with it. It's like I have to live a very regimented sort of lifestyle in order for me to be highly functioning in my business. Like if I don't, like even now I'm like out of routine, so I'm like a bit rattled, you know, but like if I get up and do my exercise in the morning or, you know, get up and go for a beach walk and then go to work, and then, you know, once I've done those things in the morning that I need to do, I can be in that space and have a clean slate for my brain that I can, you know, service people, help people, and like help my staff as well. But so I really struggle with that. It's more of an issue of like me being in control of my own like anxiety and fears and doubts. And in order for me to do that, I have to have routine so that I can deal with those things. So I use exercise a lot for that as well. And then that sort of reflects in how I deal with people as well. So
That was my favourite.
I think, yeah, it's just how you cope with your situation more for me, because I know some days are just going to suck, you know, and you see those memes all the time. It's like, just scrap today, go to sleep, start again tomorrow, you know, and sometimes that is the case. Like you don't have to win every day, you know what I mean? So it's like allowing myself to know that as well, and then like relaxing about it and accepting that. And I think the more I've done that, the more I've been able to have success, because like my battle isn't against how I'm going to succeed and make money in my business. My battle's against myself all the time. So because I'm the business owner, I'm driving the success of the business. So technically I'm my own like barrier to getting to where I want to go. So if I can put myself in a mental state and like deal with these things in a way where I can put myself in sort of an open mindset, then I find I make a lot more progress like throughout the day and sort of move my business along a lot faster. So
It actually costs you more not to prioritize yourself and those things when you have a business. It's like you need to be like upgrading your products if you have them, right, and innovating them. When you're a business owner, especially when you're in service-based business, you are the product that you need to be prioritizing, that you're on your A game. So like going out on the weekend costs us more potentially.
Yeah, it does,
if we're not operating because we're not operating how we need to be for the best for our clients, and it's just and our staff, and it seems to cost more. Whereas like if you're not just an employee, but if you are an employee, you can sort of like go fly under the radar that Monday at work and just sort of recuperate.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
yeah, I think having like a system where you know how to revive yourself so you can be the best version is imperative.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to be able to like guide people, because you forget that, like, especially when you start a business, you're on your own. So it's like really difficult to, you know, help other people if you're not in a good mental state. So you need to look after yourself, because then you can look after other people, you know?
I was going to say, I loved my favourite video was your Day in the Life at Wild Digital.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I watched like 5 loops.
Yeah, that's like the old Instagram versus reality.
Yeah.
Like meanwhile, I'm sitting in a little box, just stressing myself.
I was like, this
out.
guy gets a lot done.
What's your opinion or thoughts on the hustle culture that is running a business, or is it each to their own? Whatever works? Is it like that you see on the internet, or people, it's like a badge of honor when you've gone 3 days without sleep and you haven't done anything but work on your craft or you work on your business? Is it becoming toxic, or is it just whatever works for that person?
Yeah, I think just whatever works for that person. Yeah, like I can't do that. Sometimes I will, like I work through the night, and if I think that that's going to service me and put me in a better position. So the more I've done business, the more I've realized that I just need to look after myself first. Otherwise, this whole thing's just going to fall apart anyway. So like some nights I'll like stay up all night because I know that that's going to save me a week of headaches. But if it's if I know that I stay up all night and I'm just going to be anxious and non-functioning for the next 3 days because of that, then I identify that now. Whereas I think when I was younger, I probably didn't do that.
You just go 110.
Yeah, like hustle, like let's make money.
Yeah,
like,
that's why I asked. Because
whereas now it's more of a balance, I think.
you recognise that, yeah.
To answer your question, it's definitely like a case by case because some people do function like that. But for me, like I need to have my wellness as well. So
How do you
it's that
guys
balance.
clock off then? Like you might have something stressful, but like
yeah, it's a good question.
yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just like rigorous physical exercise. Like I have to punish myself. Like it has to be so hard that I forget about everything.
No energy to think.
Yeah, no energy to think.
Foggy
Like
brain.
it's like a full-on reset of your nervous system.
Yeah.
Like I got to do like a hard cardio session, or I got to run at least 10K. Like I can't run like 2K and be fine.
I'm like, a beach walk? But seriously, having regular, like going to the beach every day is actually really important because it's very grounding and it takes me away from work. But the other thing I would say about hustle culture, to me, I feel like, you know, this work-life balance scenario that we all talk about a lot, I feel like it's positioned to be perceived like, you know, this is what I put into my family, this is my work, these are my relationships, yada, yada, yada. But for me, I look at it more like, and it's all even all the time. For me, it's just like, okay, 1 week, high priority might be work. And it's like I'm working long hours. The next week, because I've got a reason to do that, the next week I might be showing up to work like, you know, 2 days a week and actually relaxing on the beach. And for me, it's just been about allowing that and not making every week look the same and just allowing myself to be like, okay, right now I need to hustle hard and remembering it's short term and doing what it takes, but then also not beating myself up when I'm kind of chilling for a week or going to Europe for a month, for example.
Yeah.
I doubt that you're in Europe going, I should be back on track.
No, other things are on my mind.
Something that I've really loved watching is Leffers and Brock's journey and navigating their passion and their purpose and how it's developed over time. I've noticed that it's been a bit like a process of elimination, trying new things.
Yeah, taking on a few new jobs.
Yeah, a few new jobs.
A few different career
Get
changes.
in it and go, well, this isn't for me.
Maybe 5 in 5 years.
Yeah.
I'll probably still keep doing it.
Is that what it's been like for you guys, is just try new things?
For me, yeah, I need to be stimulated. I need to be challenged. And if I find that I'm not challenging or even hitting that creative aspect as well, I don't know. I just feel like the money part of it isn't as important for me. I need to have that stimulation through what I'm doing is also achieving something, and it's, I don't know, it takes a bit of skill that I have to develop and whatnot. So, yeah, I don't like dead end jobs usually. So, just finding that balance is challenging. And I don't know, I feel like since leaving the army, I was in that funny area where I worked full time. I saved up a bit of money and whatnot and bought a house, and then I was like, what do I actually want to do? And it's been a journey. Like I did uni for 2 years, did teacher aid for a bit, labouring, electrical work, like I don't know, and I feel like I've found something that I really enjoy at the moment. Like I'm only 5 weeks in, but it's challenging and it's, you know, it's not as hard on my body, and there's room for growth, which was a massive thing for me during the whole job interview and applying for the job. So that's what I need. I need growth.
Well, that's a good lesson for everyone listening, is that like the first step was trying to figure who you are is, and you don't know who you are straight away, but it's who you're not.
Yeah.
And that first step is process of elimination. Figure out who you're not, and then you narrow that selection down.
Yeah. And I'm not saying I found the answer, but there's been so many situations and avenues I've gone down. At the time that I started, I thought that was it because I put so much effort and I thought into this decision. And then it just like after a year or two, I'm like, no, that's not it. That's not it. But then I learn from that, and then it's, who you're not.
You're sort of narrowing it down.
Yeah. So, you learn something a little bit more along the way.
Yeah. Okay. Touching on what Leffers is saying, I think it's a lot of trial and error. like, I don't know, I've never really been one when I was younger to know exactly what I wanted to do. And I always just tried a lot of different jobs, and I kind of liked the customer service industry for a while. So I was in hospitality for a long time. And then I kind of, over the years, just worked out what I was more passionate about. So I was kind of into healthy eating. That's when I worked into a raw and rice, a poke bowl shop. And that then transitioned me down to the Gold Coast. And then when that shut, that kind of opened the door for Sana Days. That is my passion project at the moment. But I can't take an income from that. So I was back in hospitality for a little bit. But this year, I started volunteering, doing disability support work. And that's just given me a lot of passion as well, because it's physical activity based. So we take them out and we do morning programs, afternoon programs, all based around sport and recreation. So I think I just kind of learned what my interests and hobbies were over the years, and then I try and transition that into my work, and that's where I find most of my passion. Most of the days I get up, to go to work, and I don't think of it as work. And especially with everything I do with Sana Days, it's my passion. I just see that as a long-term goal, and if I can just keep chipping away at that, I'll get there.
That's a good point you made, because I think when we were at school, there's all that pressure to get an OP and know exactly what you want to do straight out of school. And all these kids I felt the same, like all these kids are getting really anxious and trying to figure out who they've got to be at 18 years old or 17 years old. I've got to do this, and whatever choice I make is permanent. Yeah. And they just think that I've got to choose it at 17, and whatever I choose, it's going to be stuck with me for the rest of my life. And we're all in our 30s, apart from Sophie, and Dad, actually. We're in our 30s, and it's like, how many different jobs have we had? And
it's going to take time to work out what you like and what you don't like, and you're only going to do that with trial and error.
Yeah, and if ever want kids listening, there's no rush. It might seem like there's rush in a narrative that society gives us, or your parents or your friends or school, that there's a rush to figure out what you want to do in your life, but there's not.
There really isn't.
Yeah.
Fail fast.
Yeah. Fail fast, yeah.
I think for me, the change in the workforce, back in my day, it was pretty much a job for life. You got a job, you stayed there. Whether you liked it or not, you stayed there. The positive about employment today, and employers seem to be... They seem to accept the fact that someone will be with me for maybe 2 years and they'll move on. And I think that's an opportunity for people today, your age and younger. They accept the fact they'll go out and they might work for 12 months, don't like it, go get another job. And everyone accepts that. Back in my day, it wasn't accepted. So, and I was lucky. I got my own business, and I got into jobs where I enjoyed them. I woke up with a purpose, and I've always said from day one, the day I wake up, to go to work and I have no purpose and don't like it, I'd leave, I'd change. And I always did. Yeah. And I liked your point where, you pick your battles you want to win, as long as you win the war. And so, will you stay up or not? Well, if that's a good battle to win, and at the end of the day the war's won, then we'll go for it. But there'll be a few battles in your working career that you'll lose. Yeah. But over a 6-month, 12-month period, you've won the war, and that's what we need to accept, and we all need to accept in our lives, that the odd battle we lose, the odd failure, doesn't mean you've failed. It just means you've learnt something new, and that's I think that's a bonus and that we've got out of this current workforce or this current era. Certainly, when I was young, it wasn't. You're expected to stay in a job. Anyone leaving after 2 years, it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. I think the other thing that's interesting as well that I've learnt the hard way is I was always taught never to give up. That's my thing. Like my dad always says that. You
Good
never
South
give
African
up.
attitude to have.
Yeah, don't give up on anything, right? But as I got older, I would keep going with things that I should just let go. So that was a huge lesson for me, because I was like, we can't give up. Even if I was doing the shittest thing, I'm like, I got to be the best at this. I'm going to kill it. And then you forget why you're doing it in the first place. It's like you get so far down the track, you're like, wait, hold on. Should I even be doing this? Yeah. So I reckon another good lesson is know when to quit. Yeah. Because we always get taught, don't quit.
Fine line.
Don't quit, don't give up. But sometimes you got to know when to quit. I think that's one of the biggest things I've had to learn, because I'm like,
they're not the same,
relationships, I just don't give up. And then you get to a point where you're in this situationship and you're like, oh shit, maybe this isn't actually what I want to do. Like, why am I still in the fight? Like, get out of the fight, you know? So I think, that's also kind of an important
that difference. You got to know the difference between quitting and giving up, and they're not the same.
Giving up is normally based on a practical outcome. Am I going to succeed? For the amount of work I'm going to put into this, is it going to be a win at the end?
Yeah.
You're not giving up because it's too hard. I mean, that's quitting.
Exactly, yeah.
But it's a logical conclusion you've come to. I'm going to put all this work in and I'm actually going to get nothing out of it at the end of the day. That's a logical business decision to make. Quitting's completely different, Elliot.
Exactly.
Quitting.
Elliot.
Well,
He's improved. He's good.
Just say yes, Dad.
Hold on a second. You do realise I've got the power, and we'll edit that out. But what we will keep in is you're old.
And guess what? I'm retired.
Yeah.
And
I was about to ask, what's your next job, Brent?
financially secure.
Yeah. Well, that's my
mortgage.
My next question is to Dad. I think I talked about with Sophie that there's a cost to everything that we do. I don't know if it's too early now to reflect and working away in the mines for the last 10 years, being away from the kids, away from the coast, the family. Has it been worth it?
I think it has, and we've discussed it. It's cost versus outcome, I guess. Cost, our absence versus what are we going to get out of it. And to be completely selfish, it does come a time when us parents have to go, it's all about us. And we're at the stage of our life now, and because of where we've been for the last 10 years, we're coming back, I guess, debt-free, financially secure. The next 25 years are going to be sweet. They're all ahead of us. The kids are good. Don't have to worry about them. So you're right. It was a discussion we've had, and we talked about it after 2 years, 5 years, and now 10 years. But I think we had to get to the stage where we are number one. It sounds selfish, but if we're not in the right space mentally, then we can't help our kids anyway. If our kids wanted a hand up, we wouldn't have been in that position had we not gone out there. So I struggle to find a negative. Maybe emotional support, we weren't there, but certainly in other ways we were. We always were. So I think we are in a better space to help you in the next 20 years, or even help ourselves, more importantly.
A question that I asked you in our podcast, and you didn't get to answer because I started crying.
Okay.
How do we build resilience?
I don't know if there's a recipe to it. I think there's a lot of life experiences that go into it. You've got to experience it, understand that there'll always be something positive at the end. So it might be hard to accept at the time, but I've always had the ability to be resilient through the hard times, knowing that, like I said, I might lose that battle, but I always look, is there a war at the end that I'll win? So how do you develop it? I'm not sure how you do, but I'm sure a life experience would go towards that. If something came out of the blue that I hadn't experienced, I'd struggle to have some resilience with that, but I think it's a life skill.
Do you go back to what Chris said, that although you had a terrible childhood,
Yeah.
do you ever think that you wouldn't be half as resilient as you are now if you had a...
Zero. I haven't, because I didn't experience, if I hadn't experienced tough times, there's no way I'd be as resilient now. And that's what I said, the things I have now are because of my, the traits, the skill set, the resilience I have now are a result of my upbringing, my childhood. And if I hadn't experienced those, you did right, I wouldn't have the resilience I have today.
Yeah.
I agree, absolutely.
What about you, Soph?
Glad you asked,
You've been
actually.
through some pretty traumatic things in your life. I think after the chat we had, I left going, I think Sophie's one of the most resilient people I've ever met.
Oh, wow. Huge call. Receiving.
Take a compliment.
Thank you. So I would say for me, resilience is built by evidence. You need to look at a scenario that didn't serve you in the moment. And actually, it's kind of like what we were talking about before, actually look at the evidence of what that gave you. And it's a pretty savage experiment when you are really wanting to be in a victim mindset, which is like, that gave me nothing, it tore me apart, rah, rah, rah. So initially, when you're in a traumatic event, like, just honor that emotional wave, and, you know, you probably don't need to be rising above it. But what happens when repeated things happen, you can kind of be like, okay, well, one time I thought it was the worst day of my life, and it actually gave me further self-awareness, like, this relationship with this person, it allowed me to open up with this person, which brought me closer to this opportunity. Like, genuinely looking at what evidence do you have that these bad things can actually pay off or give you something in return. And I think it's using your hindsight to build foresight in the future. It's the easiest way to build resilience in the moment.
I listened to a TED Talk. Were you about to say something?
No, I just said I agree with that.
Oh, you agree?
Yeah. That's
Keep it
been
down
my
next time, please.
experience.
I'm kidding.
Don't talk over it.
I listened to a TED Talk about resilience, and this quote came up that I loved. It was, discomfort is the price of admission to a meaningful life. And they talked about exposing ourselves to more uncomfortable situations and emotions. Yeah. That's going to better us. And I think we talked about the silly run that I did, and then mum couldn't understand why I chose to do it.
Yeah. So you did right. Elliot's 70K run.
Walk.
Hobble.
I
Crawl.
think it's silly.
I never for one moment when he said it, I straight away went, that's a good thing to do. That'll test you. Immediately mum went, how stupid is that? So she could never get it, even when I explained the mental strength that he would have got out of that, did not get it at all. So, yeah, that's building resilience, going through the hard times and getting out the other end. I agree.
What about you, Brocker? You think you're pretty resilient?
Yeah, to a degree.
I agree.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think so.
Yeah, I've kind of touched on what Soph was saying. I think it's just built on those experiences, and when you do go through that hardship, and you got to come out the other side and be strong for yourself, be strong for your family. I think once you keep going through these things repetitively, you just build that kind of resilient layer, which is sometimes it's a blessing, and sometimes it's a curse as well, because I think it's kind of affected my emotional state. Obviously, moving on, I can easily just block off like emotions if I need to and just get on with the job.
I do.
And yeah, like I'd love to be a lot more vulnerable and open up a lot more, but yeah, I always just have like that bit of a barrier that I can easily just shut off, especially with like past relationships and all that kind of thing. So although, yeah, I do see myself as resilient, at the same stage, I'd like to be obviously a bit more on that vulnerable side as well.
Are you doing anything to help that?
Yeah. Just a lot. I think it's just a lot of self-development, especially being aware of it, and I guess the situations, and just looking back on certain experiences and looking at how I felt and how I could have done things like a lot differently, I suppose, as well. Yeah, and I think I'm obviously single at the moment, but going forward, if I do enter a new relationship, I'm kind of aware of what I'm like, and I think it's just letting the other partner know, how I am and how we can address these issues moving forward, and obviously, hopefully have a healthy relationship.
Yeah. Something that I chatted to Sophie about before I even started this podcast was defining success, and how it really is important for me that I needed to define what success was for me. Otherwise, I'll just be chasing a ghost and never feeling fulfilled. And my defining success for me with this podcast was this having one person message and say that they've initiated change in their life. They've gone to seek help. They've talked to their mum or dad for the first time about something that they've gone through. That if I could affect one person's life in a positive way like that, that was success for me. That happened after the first episode.
Yeah.
Someone messaged me that about our episode. What is your definition of success?
My definition of success is being able to look at myself in the mirror and just be happy and proud of how I've handled myself for myself. I've realized that over the years I've looked for external things to validate me as a person, and I still struggle with that every day. I want my friends to like me. I want people to like me all the time. And, like you said, sometimes you're chameleon and you try and be someone else so that they'll like you or whatever. And it's taken me so long to figure out not to do that anymore, because when I feel my best and my most authentic self, I'm just doing the things that make me who I am and like that ground me, I guess. So I have days where I'll like look at myself and go, yeah, I'm like really proud of you. You're ticking your boxes. You know what I mean? And that's the more I tick my own boxes, the more I feel successful, basically. And that doesn't mean that has nothing to do with finance, business, nothing. It's more about that, you know, like people say, filling your cup. The more I fill my cup, the more I feel successful. So being around guys like you, like coming to visit you or hanging out with Brock or having these conversations makes me feel more like myself. Whereas like going out partying, trying to fit in makes me feel really insecure in myself. Even though I still do it heaps. I still enjoy it, but
Yeah, your
it's
success
more-
comes from within.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just more like that happy feeling you get from knowing that you're doing the right things by yourself. Yeah.
Being at peace with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I think I posted a quote after Brock and I did Kokoda as well, and I can't remember exactly word for word what it is, but it's basically about accountability to yourself. So I think it said like confidence isn't shouting affirmations in the mirror. Confidence is having an undeniable stack of proof that you are who you say you are.
Yeah.
And I think that the more I prove to myself that, you know, writing down who I want to be and the more I align myself with those things, the more I feel successful within myself. Yeah. To answer your question.
Good answer. What about you, Lev? Has it changed?
Yeah, I was just trying to think about it, and I was thinking about when I'm by myself, like I feel successful with life when you're either driving home from work or you've got a moment of silence and you're not driving yourself crazy with your own thoughts. I'm trying to think about that's a mixture of a few different things, combination to build that, and that's what I feel like for me, that's success, being peaceful with myself and my thoughts and content with everything that I've got. And I think that comes through a lot of self-reflection and gratitude for what I've achieved and what I've currently got, and not getting lost in other thoughts that are unnecessary and not needed. And that's where I find happiness, and I love it when I stop and I realise I've had 5 days straight where I've sat in silence with myself or drove home and done these things without stupid or weird, dumb thoughts going through my brain. And that for me is a happy life, and that for me would be success.
Yeah.
That's how I'd view it.
Yeah, mine's more practical, I think. I think given that I'm 3/4 of the way through my life, I can reflect. And this goes to the podcast we had. Well, I talked about having a bucket list when I was at school. So I always had goals, always. So my success came around reaching those goals. It wasn't one goal. It was achieving personal health and being happy in my life, family, financially secure, happy at work. And they all just came together long term. Am I happy? Did I reach those goals collectively? And I've held that from high school through to now. I mean, as I said, I'm leaving the mine, and our goal to leave the mine after a period of time was to come out financially secure. That was our long-term goal. There were short, mids in the middle, but the long-term goal, I would have failed. I would have looked at it as a failure if I hadn't have reached that ultimate goal, and I've now done that. So, yeah, that's success to me. That's how I look at it. There's probably 3 different layers there, but it's achieving my goals.
Do you have one, Soph?
Yeah, for me, I think it's definitely a feeling, and it's probably to do with, contentment. But if I was to tangibly unpack what I think it will take for me to feel that way, it's going to be about having 2 elements equally working towards each other, and one being how I impact the world, and that's like in my circle, in my relationships, but also larger, being completely aligned to me feeling like I'm expressing authenticity and it's what I want. Like I could be impacting everyone really well but also be working for someone who I despise and don't believe in their values, and that wouldn't be success for me. So I feel like it needs to be like how I show up needs to be super aligned to who I am and what I stand for, and to have that element where I feel like it's having a positive impact on the world, or it doesn't need to be big, but my world. Like I'm feeling like I'm positively influencing wherever I am.
Love it.
Me,
You know you're up. I gave you the longest time.
That's an
Thinking about 20 different answers now. I'm going to pick one.
Whatever Dad said.
Just choose a number between 1 and 10.
that little card game.
No, mine's pretty simple. I think it's just to be the best version of myself and sticking to my core values and who I believe I am as a person, and not letting kind of outside forces and work and everything change who I am or who I want to be. I just want to stick, I just want to be myself. I've never really cared too much about material possessions or anything. And if I can just, be myself, and I love helping others. So I love watching others succeed as well. So I get a lot of success from watching other people succeed as well. So,
yeah. I'm going to open it up. Has anyone got questions for another guest about their episode, or things that they listened to, or things that they wanted to ask another guest?
Please.
No?
I have a question, please.
Yes, go.
It's for you, Chris.
Yep.
Have you ever had a time in your business that you actually have felt like I'm a failure?
Yeah, every day.
Really?
Yeah, pretty much every day, yeah. Like I catastrophize for sure.
Yeah.
Like I'll be like the world's melting down. Like I'm going to lose all my clients. Like, like service-based businesses are hard because people come to you because they almost like you. It's a relationship, right? So if you're running advertising for people, you have to understand their brand, their values, who they are, and you have to sort of align with that, and you have to be genuine, and you've got to know your shit as well. So it's kind of like, it's a really difficult thing to maintain, because I'm responsible for people's livelihoods. Like they have businesses, and I make 80% of the revenue for some of the businesses I work for. So it's like, it's a really difficult one to navigate emotionally, because some days you're just not getting the results that they necessarily think they need, but you've got to manage their expectations. So it's just this constant like roller coaster for me. Like it's never, like no day's the same, which makes it great, but it's also very volatile. Like it's like one day you're on top of the world, you just got 6 new clients, you're like, I'm going to make all this money. Then the next day you're like, oh shit, I've actually got to like do all this work now because I got all those clients. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like what I've had to learn to do is like navigate those roller coaster of emotions, because in one day, in the morning, I can be like, I'm ready to quit. Then in the afternoon, I've gotten 3 clients, 4 clients that called me saying, we love ya, and my mum said everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then in the other, I'm like, yes, I'm back. You know what I mean? Like,
but you've just
so
relied on external validation for that.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, my struggle's always been external validation. Like that's my biggest problem. Like, so yeah, I'm really working on that, and like how to be happy with myself. And that has allowed me to deal with my business as well, because I don't take things as personally.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, it's part of the business. You're going to lose clients. People are going to be unhappy with you. Just take it in your stride more. You know what I mean? It's not your fault. Like stop blaming yourself for everything. So I think, does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, I was just checking to see if everyone feels like a failure.
Yeah, I think everyone does though.
Yeah.
Like a lot of my friends who have businesses are exactly the same. Like they tell me all the time, like I'm ready to quit, like, once a week. But,
yes.
But
Same.
I think that's just an outlet that you have to have sometimes. And I think it's about how you manage that, like, and who you talk to as well. Like make sure it's in your inner circle and you're not projecting that energy out to the bigger world, because if your clients find out or whatever,
he
like,
knows.
You don't want that negativity in your life, So like keep it tight and have those conversations, get it out of you, and then get on with it,
Do you ever speak to people who are older and been in the business game for a long time?
Yeah.
Do you see how they handle that? Is it better, or
it's
is it
the same.
motivating,
Does it
or is
feel
it
out of
like
touch?
give you hope?
Yeah, so what I've realised is like I've got a couple of mentors that from my old jobs, they're like my old bosses and stuff. They still have the same problems. It's just they deal with it privately. So you never see it on the outside.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I'm saying. Like you got to have those people, like, if I want to call you, Elliot, and tell you about my girlfriend and I've been crying for 4 days. Like, that's fine that I can tell you that, but I don't want to project that onto everybody else. So it's like, what you get better at when you're older is, that's why I say your circle gets smaller. There are those people you know that are there for you, that can be there for you in those moments, because moments come and go. Like, you're not stuck there forever. So it's just like, how can I cope with this in the moment, in private, and deal with it, and then come out a positive person for the people on the outside. So I think that as you get older, the problems are exactly the same. You almost feel exactly the same, but it's the way that you deal with it that makes the difference. So, that's why I answer your question, because it's like, it's the same thing. It's just they're dealing with it better. Because they've learned to cope. You know what I mean? So, and that's kind of what I'm going through too, I guess.
Final question is something that I've actually always wanted to ask Brock. Pretty much ever since Robbie passed, this is a question that I was too scared to ask you, and at the same time, I didn't know what answer I was looking for. I didn't know why I wanted to ask you this question. And after doing the podcast with each of you, this question also applies to you guys. But I want to read a quote out that might give some context to my question. And you can try to guess who said this. It goes, life is beautiful, but you have to accept the good and bad as being beautiful. You can't accept the good, and then when we lose somebody, life sucks. Life is beautiful because it gave us the ability to know them on our journey through life. We met them, we loved them, we cared about them, they cared about us. That's the purpose of life, to enjoy what we have when we journey through it. Sometimes we don't understand, what's my purpose? Why am I here? Why do I have to go through this pain? Why do I have to go through this fear all the time? Why can't it be peaceful all the time? But then it wouldn't be life. We have to take life on life terms, not on our terms. So everyone here, all the stuff that you guys have gone through, and you reflect on all the trauma, all the pain, all the sleepless nights. Can you say that life is beautiful?
A lot of lean backs and deep
Hell yes.
I'm a strong believer everything happens for a reason, and we can't choose what happens to us, but we can choose what we do after that situation. You can always have that negative, experience, and then just have a negative effect afterwards, and just kick the world. Life sucks. Why does this happen to me? Or you can, take that and then turn it into a positive situation. And I think that's what I've done after Dad passed. It's taken a little while, obviously grieved for a long time, but then I've realised, mental health isn't going anywhere. Everyone's going to struggle. Like, just looking around my mates group, a lot of us go through the battle. So what can I do to, help this situation and have a bit of a positive impact in the space of mental health? So
love it.
Yeah, I think the same. I think we have to go through pain. It's short-term pain, and we accept that as part of life. It was never going to be wonderful from start to finish. And if you have that belief and acceptance that you can turn negatives into positives, which I love doing, I can always find something good out of something that's happened, or something perceived that's bad. I can always find a benefit or something that I can enjoy later. Robbie's death, we coached together, and I guess my brother committed suicide, and I keep looking back at why that happened and the positives that might have come out of it. And I always managed to grab something that that made me feel better, or made me understand why it all happened, whether that's a negative or a positive. But I always managed to not get down for too long about something that as tragic as that.
Yeah.
And that's helped me deal with it. I haven't dwelled too long on stuff, whether it's private, international stuff that I see on TV. I've managed compartmentalising is something I can do pretty well. So I think we all have to accept the whole package.
Yeah, because no one gets out of this life trauma free. So I think you just got to accept the situation, and as you said, try and take a little bit of positives out of a real negative situation.
Yep.
I'm a big believer that pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. So like the initial thing that happens to you, that sucks, but don't let it define you. Don't get bogged down in it. Move forward. Don't suffer.
I have an issue where I get like addicted to being sad. So like,
Is that right?
yeah, I'll get in like cycles of thinking about it because like I want to feel sad, but it's like subconscious. It's weird. I've always had that issue of like, and like I've gone to psychologists and stuff about it, and I've had to learn to sort of not get stuck on things, but I still do it to this day. But when I look back at those times, I appreciate them also. Like it's weird. Like when I was going through that, I feel like I needed to get stuck there for a while to sort of get spat out to then appreciate what I have now in a way. So it's kind of similar what everyone said, you know what I mean? Like taking the good things from those little things and then sort of making it a positive. But man, I get so bogged down and I get so sad, you know, like, and that's why I've had all my depression over the years, has just been getting stuck in these fake scenarios that aren't even real. I'm just creating them in my head. And then now that I look back at them, it makes it so much easier to deal with things like that coming back at me now. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's weird. Like, yeah, it is when you read a quote like that, for instance, you can see how life can be beautiful even when it's shit out. You know what I mean? Like, because you look back at that and you're like, that is the experience of being a human.
Yeah.
Feeling those things, like going through those things and then adapting and coming out the other end and being a better person. And I think that if you're not doing that, then you're not, you know, you're like not succeeding in a way. You know what I mean? Like you got to look back retrospectively at those things and see them as beautiful, because that's part of the life experience and part of like making you who you are. So I think that also comes with getting a little bit older and understanding that. But that's what shapes you, and that's what makes life. Otherwise, what will we talk about? Yep. It was sick. Yesterday I was sick. Today's sick. What's up, man? What'd you do
We
today?
do that.
Same thing. Like, what will we talk about? You know what I mean? Like, it's like you got to go through that stuff to like, you know, create characters, create different people. And that's why different people get along differently and we all click together, because we've gone through all these weird little things in our lives and like kind of hectic things too. But yeah, I think that's the beauty of it. And that's why I think some people write about like those painful times as being beautiful as well. Yeah.
You concur?
I think, I think I was speaking to Whit about it the other day, or Mum actually, when I told her the news about the baby, and it was like 5 years ago would have I ever pictured myself here? And I'm like,
No way.
fuck, I was thinking the other way. And now you look at it and you're like, this is crazy. It's like, and that whole experience up until now is such a huge lesson, which I want to be able to share, and that's another life thing. And now I have a different outlook on everything, and it's, I don't know, it's amazing. And I don't know. I don't have the answer, but far out.
You gave an answer though. So this is the fun bit.
Yeah.
Are we all ready?
Oh, the fun bit.
We have,
Oh, gosh.
I thought we were dodging this one today.
no.
I don't
So
like it
we've
when he
got
pulls the phone out, Something weird's about to happen.
Get that away.
so questions for everyone.
Oh,
Are we doing it
some
on
more
the
reader questions.
Yeah, we'll edit it in later.
edit it in later? Let's see if we can all hear this.
Hey guys, Big Mick here. I've got a question for you about life goals. I personally feel as though the world is moving faster than it ever has, and things can change so dramatically so quickly. I'm interested to see how you guys use goals in your life to help steady the ship. I personally don't think much more than a few months ahead, as I feel as though that's something I can control. I'm interested to see in what way you guys currently use goals to help steady the ship through life.
Steady the ship.
Steady the ship.
Goals.
Yeah, he just rang me. I was,
Wants to know if you heard his question.
have you answered the question yet?
Yeah.
He's got one more actually. What's his other one?
And I have one more question. This is probably a more serious one. This isn't for Leffers, but I'm just interested to see how often you guys shampoo your hair as males.
Yeah, he'll be there.
That's good luck. So goal setting. Do you guys set long distance goals, 5-year goals? Good as was saying, he doesn't set any more than 6-month goals.
Let me at it.
I don't set goals.
You don't?
No.
Yeah.
No goals.
No goals. No. I don't like the goals because I feel like when I reach them, I lose purpose again. So I concentrate on every day, sort of like Mick. Shout outs to you, Mick.
Actually, we'll give Mick a shout.
Yeah.
Shout out, Mick.
Thanks for the question, Mick.
I think I promised everyone a shout out if they send a question in.
Yeah. I think I definitely have like things I want to achieve, but I'm really cautious about when I reach those things being like sort of losing purpose a little bit or feeling like what's next and then got to figure that out again and then go again. So like I feel like I do have goals and things I want to achieve in life, obviously. And I actually have like a book where I've written like a full 10-year plan, like what I want my life to be like. But I think that that's just a guideline. Like I don't define myself by reaching those goals. If that makes sense. So yeah, I like to take it day by day and like enjoy the journey more and like figure out how to make the journey more fun because it's like we got to try and enjoy ourselves because yeah, it can just be a shit show sometimes. So just try and like make every day as fun as possible whilst sort of zigzagging your way to some sort of loose plan.
Yeah, I've found that. I'm sort of similar. I still have goals, but I don't find that I attach time to them.
Like a time frame. Yeah. Okay.
Last thing I need is to start letting myself down, and then if you get too attached to the goal and you don't achieve it, it's knocking you down a peg sort of thing. It's just self-infliction. And I don't know, I guess like I do have long goals. Like I want to bring my kids up the best I can, and like, but that's not something I'm going to see until different stages of their life when they're middle teenagers, and then when they're 20s when they also grow up, and all those sorts of things. And we've got financial goals, but yeah, I set little ones, but not necessarily set them. I just I would like to do that, and I don't give myself a time frame because if I don't hit that, I don't want to feel bad about it.
Next one.
Hey, this is Jess. My question for Sophie is, if you could travel back in time to meet your younger self, what would you say to her? Do you have any advice?
Oofed. Jess with the hard hitters. I definitely would have some words. What they would be, I'd hope I'd have time to prep for them. But I think if I could just throw it out there, I'd probably just be like, you are worthy of everything you desire, and come into life with that in place and for certain. Because I think for a long time I thought that I had, a direction or a ambition or I don't know, even just something superficial that I desired, and I thought not for them but not for me for a long time, and I think that held me back a lot.
Yeah, this one's for Brocco. Obviously something I've always wanted to know was if Robbie was still here and his passing hadn't have happened, what do you think you'd be doing with your life now? Obviously your interests have gone down the mental health route and helping people. Do you think that would still be the same, or where do you think life would have led you?
Yeah, it's a pretty good question.
Shout out, Benny.
Yeah, life obviously would look a lot differently. I don't know, I could still be in England, living in London, who knows. But I've always loved helping people and watching others succeed. So I think I'd still be doing something in that kind of realm. Not too sure exactly what I'm doing, whether that support work kind of role or a teacher role but I have had a lot of passion for business as well. So I think it'd just be tying in, with like what I'm passionate about and business as well, whether, that's in the health and fitness industry and the business industry and just tying them together. But, I think life would look a lot differently, but I'd hopefully just follow down my passions, and hopefully that'll lead me to my career.
I'm Lockie. I was wondering how I could be a better sibling. That's my question.
Why are you laughing, Lockie? just ask the question.
Oh my God, Lockie.
So, by the way, that's Lockie, Sophie's
brother.
Younger brother? Older brother.
Oh my God. It's funny because I have some things to say.
That you don't want to say?
No. I'll say it. It's not one of those ones where it's just like, oh no, you're perfect. But I would say we have such a good relationship, and I fucking love it. But to be a better sibling, you could probably just put yourself in my shoes a little bit more, because I think it's really easy to, men and women, right? men are problem solvers and women are talkers. And I feel like it's really important in any male and female relationship, not to say like that's always the case, but certainly with my male friends and with my brother, sometimes I just don't need you to like downplay what I'm dealing with. I just need you to listen and kind of be on my side. So I feel like I walk away from some of our conversations being like, I'm not going to hold that against him because he was only trying to help, and like I'm kind of pep talking that to not harbor any resentment. But I would just love if he could just, you know, show up and me not have to
convince him or anything.
Yeah, like kind of have to cut him some slack every time I want to talk about something.
Love it.
But love ya.
We do that. I think Whit sent me something ages ago, and now we do it. Is this one of those ones where I try and solve it?
Yeah.
Or is this one of those ones where I shut up and listen?
Oh,
exactly. Just a quick question.
Pretty much, yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, because I go straight into problem solving, and I'm like trying to solve it, and she'll be like, "No, it's one of those ones where you just listen." I'm like,
Oh, I need to do that with Jordan.
Very helpful.
That's great.
It's good.
Yeah.
That's the one that I can.
Because
I did the
guys,
same
we don't
thing.
even know that it's something that we want.
Yeah,
And I don't know. I found it helpful.
yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
How are we all? Luke O'Keefe here, long-time listener, first-time caller. Firstly, I'd just like to congratulate Elliot and the team. They're on track for Season 1 at Mind Your Head. You guys are doing a great job there, and I look forward to seeing what you bring us in the episodes ahead. My question to everyone is, since coming on Mind Your Head, if and how has the vulnerability and you've shared helped you have conversations with other people in your community? And to the purpose of the podcast, how are those conversations helped in your relationships?
Yeah, going back to vulnerability.
Yeah, I guess living in a mine site, I actually don't know anyone outside my house. So I guess it's changed. I can now have different conversations with Annie, my wife.
Oh, really?
Which I probably didn't have. Yeah, we've talked about stuff since that podcast that we probably haven't covered.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as how it changed with mates, I'm in a mine site, so that hasn't changed, but certainly, yeah, with Mum it has, yeah.
Shout out to MC Craig, though.
Yeah, I think like me and Brocco doing the Run Club, I'm a lot more open-minded to like listening now.
Yeah.
After doing the podcast, I think I was probably a little bit more closed off, and I'm trying to reach out a little bit more and like ask people, you know, how they are and have more than a service conversation. So yeah, that's probably one thing that's helped me a little bit, just
I've
open up with people.
Heaps of people are comfortable opening up with me now.
You're like, fuck off.
No, it's fine. No, I'll be an open book, but I don't know, maybe because I was so vulnerable that they have no issue saying whatever they were saying, which is good.
It's a permission slip.
You broke the barrier down, I think.
Yeah.
Whit was saying that let's get stopped in the street and say like how good that episode was.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, which is the whole reason why I wanted to do it, the purpose. So, yeah, it's nice to hear that, and people just say whatever's wrong, and I don't feel like it should be compared to anyone else's. Everyone's own battle is their own. So.
It goes back to what I was saying, that what Bruno Brown was talking about. It's like it doesn't matter. Like these people, some of these people don't even know you, and it's not about how smart you are or how funny you are, but you've made them feel a certain way by listening to your episode. And someone that doesn't know you listens to the episode and they feel like they just get you.
Yeah.
Or you get them. Yeah. And it's like that instant connection that people can have when you're just being vulnerable with each other.
That's how friendships are made as well, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, they feel seen.
Hi, guys. Firstly, Elliot, we're loving the podcast. Keep up the good work. Our question to Brent is, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give your younger self? Love you guys, and we'll see you next year.
Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
I thought it was Mum.
Christine.
It's Christine. Yeah. Sound the exact same.
Yeah, sisters.
Sisters. Who would have thought?
I think I covered that question in our original podcast. I think I would just tell my younger self that it would be okay. It'll work out. Yeah, if it was 13, it would be telling myself it'll be okay because that was a very tough period of my life. So
Yeah. There's one more coming up for you.
This is a question from Leslie for Brent. You've been known on occasions, Hagues, over the years to be a somewhat prickly individual. I, however, have never found you to be anything other than a loyal, steadfast and loving friend. And we've been friends now for over 45 years. What would you say are the qualities that make you one of my best friends?
Good question.
That's my godparents.
Right. Prickly.
Prickly. That's
Key
funny because
takeaway.
I've been called prickly too.
I think Leslie has always been genuine and goes back to, I guess, what I talked about. Why would someone want to be my friend? And everything she talks about and every bit of, when we have conversations, she's genuinely interested in what I do and where I've been and my health. And there's been nothing fake. There's been never any small talk. It is always good conversation. So that's probably what it is. It's just a good friend without any other agenda than liking you, and I could see that straight away, and I think that's why we've been friends for 40 odd years.
Nice.
Hey guys, Mitch here. My question for Lookie is, what advice would you give to a friend whose mate is clearly dealing with something, but they're unwilling to open up and talk to you about it? They're internalizing all of the issues and making bad choices or developing bad habits as a result. What can a friend do to get his mate to open up? Is it just a case of being there, or is there something he should have done differently?
Shout out to Mitchie. Hey, mate. Love ya. I think that's a really good question and one that's kind of hard to answer, and it's kind of like a case by case again. Like, I think that if it's your friend, you kind of know how you can approach them. And I think that if you're trying to help that person, have a think about how that person reacts to situations before you approach them about anything. I think the biggest thing you need to be conscious of is when you see your friends going through tough times, don't feel sorry for them, because they don't feel sorry for themselves, because they don't know that in that situation, they're just caught in it, right? So don't go into it trying to help them necessarily. Like, go into it trying to be supportive and trying to have real conversations with them. And then I think the second element of it is trying not to lead with the issue. So don't lead with, oh, I see you struggling, or I see this, because what that does is it just makes people close up. So I think that the best advice I can give you is, A, make sure that if you're not spending a lot of time with that person, spend more time with them so that you can get in a space where they start to feel comfortable with you again. So, because they're trying to distance themselves, right? So I think, A, yes, definitely spend more time with them. And then secondly, how you broach the things you're worried about with them. You have to, again, like I said, understand how that person's going to react if you do ask them about those things, and then structure what you're going to say to them around that. So if it's like Brock, for instance, right? Like, I can have just an open conversation with Brock, but it's usually when we're sitting around like the dinner table or something, and he's pretty happy because he's just cooked like the best salmon bowl ever. So he's pretty stoked with himself. So he's in a
Does he sit down and just go, ah?
Yeah, he's just like, he's
I
in a
think
good
Lookie's
mood.
more stoked than I am.
Yeah, you would be.
Yeah, I am, mate.
Because it's free.
But like, then I know, like, me and Brock always have good conversations over the dinner table, whereas when we're in social environments, we probably don't chat that openly. We're just like, hey mate, how are you? Like, have a beer, get out of there. So I think it's about knowing what situation to approach that person in. So where are they most comfortable? Like, approach them there, and then meet them there doing the thing that they love doing. Do it with them and enjoy it with them. And then that's where you're going to find like common ground and
an opening.
They'll open up in that scenario. So that's the best advice I can probably give for that. Yeah.
All right, mate. So thank you, Elliot, for giving me the opportunity to ask the boys, as well as Brentos and Sophie, a few questions today. And also thank you to you, Elliot, for providing us with this platform. So as for me personally, it's felt like a bit of a home away from home. You know, hearing some stories about, you know, best mates who we've been friends for over 20 years, and I'd never heard these stories in my life. So, mate, I really appreciate that, and it's definitely been a very heartwarming experience for me to be able to listen to, you know, such familiar voices from week to week. So my questions today, first one's going to be for Leffers. So it's a bit of a two-part question. So you mentioned that in Afghan you felt quite dead inside already, as well as in Sydney when you were ready to call it quits and, you know, commit suicide, which, you know, I'm super glad you didn't, because, you know, I love you lots, and I hope that you know, your mindset's completely changed from that now. But what I want to know is, what are the two different feelings emotionally, physically, and spiritually between those two scenarios?
Do you want to answer that first?
Yeah. Shout out to Yems.
Do you know what he was?
Love James.
Yeah, you understood that?
Yeah, I understand what he's saying. I've never thought about it like that,
Yeah.
I guess, to answer it verbally. When I was overseas, I think I was accepting death as a coping mechanism for fear and what directly was in front of me physically, which could get me. And I felt like I had to do that to mentally and physically get over whatever I was conducting, which was searching. And then I feel like that, in doing that, also affected me when I returned. But I think it is a bit different from what, and that's why I was asking. I think it was a bit different. It felt different. Like me accepting death overseas, it made me feel confident. When I wanted to die, when I was back, it was, yeah, I don't really know how to say it. It was sort of like, one was accepting it so I wouldn't die, and then when I was back, it was like I wanted to die.
You wanted, yeah.
So it was two different things, but I think the first one that occurred overseas brought on the second one, but for different reasons. One was to survive, the other one was
not to
survive.
And then secondly, is more in regards to your time in Afghan. So, you know, I don't know whether you've analysed or not, whether or not you could have gone into the position with IEDs in a different headspace, in a different mindset, something that you could potentially help, you know, other soldiers with in future, to not come out of, you know, their time in war with such a complex and conflicted mindset of, you know, life and death. Yeah, if that's even possible. So that's my question for Leffers.
So, like, could you have, instead of the ability to go, all right, I'm gonna accept that I'm gonna die, and that calms you to do your job, have you ever looked back at it and gone, was there another option for me to take that would help me do my job, apart from the fact that I'm gonna face death? And you know how you talked about killing your soul.
Yeah.
Was there?
No.
Do you think there could be another option?
I don't think so at the time.
At the time,
nah. What? Like, realistically, what else was there? Like, I sort of felt like I had to convince myself and accept the fact that I was going to die, because it was so nerve-wracking and, like, real, I guess. Otherwise, you're just sort of out of body. You're not in the presence. And it's funny he brings that up. I wouldn't think I could think of anything else. And I actually been doing an audio book for World War II at the moment, and some of the soldiers write what's in the book from there. And I'm not comparing my situation to them, but a lot of them had accepted death as well. And that was, and I was like, oh, right. So maybe in that situation where it is so prevalent that it's a high chance of dying, it might be the only option. And to deal with it, I don't know. I really don't have an answer for it. If I did, be a billionaire, but it's still ongoing, isn't it? Like it's still an issue, so I don't really have an answer for it.
That's
so,
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll keep moving on.
For Chris, in your podcast, you spoke a lot about your relationship with Mum, but for me, I wanted to know whether there was anything that you'd like to say to Pete. I know you guys have a pretty good relationship now, but if there's anything that you wanted to say to him and open up to him, that if you haven't already done so directly.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy. Love you, mate. Miss ya. Yeah, that's probably like the thing that hits my heartstrings the hardest, that question, which fuck you, Zaya. But yeah, me and Dad, just when I think about him, I just makes me emotional because we've been through so much stuff. But I think the thing that I want to say to Dad is I'm super proud of you. I think a lot of people say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And I think that I'm proud of my dad for identifying what he could have lost by, through all his anger problems when he was younger. And like you guys all know my dad now is just an awesome human being. And I think to have the mental fortitude, the strength and the amount of love that he had for us as a family to literally change who he was as a person fundamentally to stay in our lives is like the truest form of love I've ever seen in my life. So to Dad, I really respect you for that. I think not many people can do that. And when I think about you and I look at you, sorry. When I think about you and I look at you, I'm just so proud. You're a really good example for a lot of people, and just man to man, just proud of you, for doing that, and so happy I'm in your life, and I just want to spend more and more time with you as I get older. So, love you, Pete.
For Brent, any advice as a father who grew up with such a traumatic experience to give to us younger generation who are potentially looking to raise kids in the future? Any advice you would give to us in terms of from your own personal experience now as a father? Is there anything that you would have done differently growing up that that you've learned along the way that might differ from how you had raised Elliot and Fletch and also and Sam?
I think for me, it's probably, this is just me, I'm sure you're more compassionate than me, but certainly if I had my time again, it would be more patience, more compassion. It's something I've also learned is embrace the good moments, absolutely take them and love them, because sometimes there aren't that many. If it's 2:00 in the morning and you've got to start work at 5 and she's been crying all night, that's a tough gig. But that's a bad time, but the good times are so much better. Embrace the good times, compassion, empathy, patience.
Mm-hmm. So for Brock, you've always been a bit of a cornerstone of strength for your family during very tough times of grief. I think especially for Butch, someone who's might have been affected more so because he's the youngest of the family, but also for him to look up to you as a brother, as a role model, and also potentially his best friend. Anything that you want to say to him which might be extremely tough for you to say to him face to face?
That's a pretty good one, actually. I really thought about it. Because I guess when it all happened, putting myself in my brother's shoes, I think it would have been a completely different scenario because I was overseas, my sister was away, my brother was at the house when it all went down. So I think he dealt with it a lot differently than I dealt with it. He probably turned a bit more to the drugs and the partying and dealt with it all that way. And he's a bit closed off in that sense and hard to talk to. So I think all I'd probably say to him is that I'm here for him if he ever needs it, and if he ever wants to talk, I'm here. And I don't know, just being that big brother, I think I'll I'll do my best to help him any way I can, and that I'm just here for him.
Love it. This is normally the time that we end the show, but I love surprises. Did you want to?
Yeah, I'll do the
So,
honors.
Kristen.
Kristen, on the hot seat.
You're coming on.
Yes.
Yeah, baby. Wait.
Oh, how good. The old switcheroo. Love it.
Grab a seat, headphones on. Do you know how to use them? So I just want to say and introduce Kristen to all the listeners and viewers at home. She's been someone that's had front row seat to everyone's episode. She's been in the room and she's experienced all the emotion, all the vulnerability firsthand. So what's it been like for you being in here the last year almost, watching all the episodes? Has there been one that's really resonated with you?
I think all of them.
Wrong answer.
You've got that answer's a choice of 4.
I like everyone's.
Yeah, love you all. It's been an experience, definitely triggering for me at times.
Yeah.
But no, it's been amazing, and I love like what you're doing, and all of you coming in and just speaking your truth and being vulnerable, and it's amazing.
So I've got some final questions.
Okay.
For you.
For me, wow.
Hey, this is Megan. My question is for Quiz, Carol, love of my life, also known as Kristen. My question for you is, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Just want to also let you know I am constantly proud of you and always cheering for you near or far. Lots of love.
Love you, Megan.
What could you do?
What would I do if I
couldn't fail?
Fuck. If you couldn't fail. I mean, I don't know. I don't really... What's that?
It's a good way of saying it.
Yeah. I don't really view failure. I don't know. I don't really think failure is a thing. Like, I don't think you really can fail. For me, failure is not trying or not living life to the fullest.
It's not about outcome. It's about how you live your life.
Yeah, it's about doing it.
Your attitude.
If you're, to me, failing would be living a life that doesn't feel right but is comfortable rather than trying things and seeing what happens as opposed to not doing it because of the fear of failing. I think not doing it would be a failure, but I don't know what I would do if I...
It's a very broad question. One more for you.
Hey, this is Caleb, and my question for Kristen is, what is the biggest thing you've learnt this year, and how has it changed your life?
Probably, I've still had moments of not backing myself, but I think I've done enough in the last 12 months to build evidence that I can do whatever I put my mind to. And yeah, I think that's obviously changed my life in the sense that although things may be scary and I may take time to think about a new opportunity or taking the next big leap, I know that I will be able to do it and I will be okay. And even though it might be scary, just to do it because I can.
Love it. I do want to say quickly, just a big thank you to you and to you, Soph. It's been this has been one of the best experiences I've ever had, and I can't thank you two enough. It's been such a ride, and you've taught me so much, and it's been an absolute pleasure coming in the studio for the last 9-10 months, and you've given me such confidence, and you've created such a safe space here that I love it. It's really changed my life. It's changed the relationships I've had with people in my life. So I can't wait for season 2. This is not the end. And going with that, thank you, Soph, Lef, Chris, Brock, Dad. We also had Zoe, Joel, Ryan, Travis, and Jordan actually came on the podcast. thank you so much. It was really tough, like asking you guys to come on and knowing where we were going to go with this conversation, and it showed a lot of courage and a lot of bravery from you guys, and like I was saying before, the vulnerability that everyone showed, it's not only helped our relationship between us, but just from the responses and the feedback you guys have had, it's obviously had a ripple effect on the community. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing this journey with me and this experience, and it's something that I'll remember forever.
Yeah, thanks, heaps. Going back at you, Hagsy. Proud of you for taking the leap. It's been amazing to watch this whole season unfold, and all the interviews with all the boys. It's definitely, I think, brought us a lot closer, and hopefully giving hope to others out there, that might be in similar situations, to open up and get a little bit more vulnerable as well. So that's what it's all about, and can't wait for season 2.
Yeah, and same with me. I think it's not just what you've offered us, but also your own personal growth, mental health, and where the quantum leap you've made from, probably 3 years ago to where you are now is probably the most impressive thing I think I've experienced and seen. And certainly Mum and I are looking forward to being back here in December.
Yeah, the word proud.
Yeah, very proud of you, Hagsy.
Thanks,
yeah.
Done a good
we
job.
love you, mate. You're doing a great
really
job.
Well.
Thanks, mate.
You got a little. I've had people who don't know you, haven't met you, and then they talk to me about the podcast and what I said. And they go, "Oh, that Elliot guy." I'm like, "Yeah. Oh, he seems like a real good bloke." And I'm like,
That's like the cafe. You told people the customers at the cafe about the podcast, and they start listening to it. They're like, "Oh, we love Elliot. He's got such a good podcast voice."
There's a feeling that I have never felt before, and it's something that I've always heard, and I've always wondered what it would really feel like, and it was true fulfillment. I never knew what that felt like or what that would feel like until I did the podcast. It was feeling so proud of myself and really fulfilled of everything that we've created together. And I know that you and Mum have always been proud of me, but this is the first time that I've felt like I've done something to make you proud of me. And I know that it's probably, the more I've thought about that, is it something that I'm making you proud, or is it something that I'm now finally proud of myself for achieving? At all the things that I've achieved, whether it be in rugby, in sport, I've never looked back and gone, I'm really proud of myself for that. Until now, this is the first time I can sit back and go, that's something that I'm really proud of how I handled that and what I achieved doing this.
I think for us, it's the look in your face, because even through your entire rugby playing days, I don't remember too many times you've walked off the paddock with a smile. You've walked off the paddock with your footy gear in your bag and in the back of the car and said, let's go. This is the first time you've had a love for something, and the smile is huge. So we're proud of you for finding something in your life that genuinely makes you happy and to look forward to going to. Whereas I was never quite convinced that rugby it might have been on the field, but certainly it didn't carry on to off the field. That was a great, you loved that experience. I didn't ever get that feeling, whereas this makes me feel as if you've found your position.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's wrap it up and go home.
That's a wrap.